Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I have a super special treat for you guys. I'm making one of my favorite cakes. This is a pistachio cake, and that's because I got my hands on these beautiful Sicilian pistachios. It's such a treat. They're very special, and I'm gonna make them stand out in this cake that I used for a birthday celebration. So I'm starting with a step that seems a bit brutal. I'm just grinding these up, and you don't want them to be powdery per se, but you want them nice and evenly chopped like this. So a food processor is great for this. If you don't have one, a blender might also work. Just keep an eye on them. Worst case, you will have to chop them by hand. And just make sure and everything is evenly ground up. So I'm preparing all my dry ingredients here. I have some flour, salt, baking soda, baking powder. And to that, I'll add my beautiful pistachios. And just look at that beautiful color. And actually the green kind of stays with the cake. It's not as vibrant as it is raw, but it's still a green cake in the end. So next up, I'm gonna get started with the base of the cake. So I'm doing a creaming method, starting with some butter, and I'm just gonna cream that very well before adding the sugar, and that is the basis of the creaming method. Now I should give you a bit of a warning. The pistachio flavor is quite intense in the cake, so if you are not that sure about the pistachio flavor, you might want to use less pistachios. But I'm just going full decadent with this cake because it's such a special occasion. So we have the butter and the sugar that have been creaming. You want to wait until that's pale before moving to the next ingredient, which is the eggs. And just to make the cake a little bit extra fluffier, I'm gonna separate my eggs into egg whites, which I will dump straight into another bowl that I have here. And the egg yolks will go into the butter sugar mixture. So what we want to do is basically use the egg whites to add more air into this cake batter. And we're gonna achieve that by mixing those egg whites to mediumly stiff peaks. And we're gonna fold that into our main batter later on. And I just wanna show you how my egg whites look. If you can form a peak like this, then you know you're good to go. They're nice and glossy, but holding their shape, and that's what you want. All right, so moving back to the base batter, I'm gonna add those egg yolks to the butter sugar mixture. There's only 2 of them, so I'm just gonna add them all in one go. And stir this for a couple of seconds before moving to the next ingredients. I have my dry ingredients with the pistachios here. And I also have some wet ingredients. I have sour cream and some whole milk to add to this. And I alternate between dry and wet ingredients. And of course, don't forget to scrape the sides of your bowl with each addition so that you ensure that everything is evenly incorporated. But we don't want to overmix. Once you see that most of the flour is incorporated, so I like to switch to a spatula and finish this off by hand. So to my base batter, I'll add those egg whites in additions, and I'm gonna do folding motions to make sure I don't destroy all that air that we've built in the egg whites. But I do work quickly. And in the meantime, while everything was mixing, I was busy preparing my cake pans. And that kind of helps to not delay the process. And also you can start preheating the oven when you do this as well. So I have here 3 6-inch round pans that I like to butter them slightly and place a piece of parchment at the bottom just to really make sure that nothing sticks to the cake pan. I decided to use 3 cake pans because I wanted thinner layers of cake because I'm doing a layered cake. But if you don't want thin layers, then you could get away with just 2 of these cake pans or 1 8-inch. So here we have it. The last thing we need to do is just to spread the batter evenly. It's quite a thick cake batter. So in order to ensure that it bakes evenly in the oven, I'm just using my spatula here and spreading that around as neatly as possible. So this is how they come out of the oven. You don't really see that green just yet, but wait until we cut into them. Don't forget that you need to let these cool completely before attempting to release them from the pan. And I like to run my offset spatula all around the edge to make sure nothing is really sticking. But thanks to that parchment at the bottom, everything should come out just fine. As we see here, just carefully lift that off of the cake like so. And that's it. I just turn it back on its bottom, place it on the cooling rack to completely cool before I start frosting. And this is something you don't see me do every day, but I'm gonna show you the frosting that I'm using for this particular cake and how to assemble it in case you want to make a layered cake for a special occasion. So I'm doing a mascarpone buttercream, and it's absolutely delicious. And I'm starting with some room temperature butter. And for frostings, I do like to use a mixer with the paddle attachment to ensure that everything is beaten properly, but without incorporating too much air like you would with a whisk. The whisk would be great for a different kind of frosting, but not for this sort of buttercream. So I've sifted some icing sugar on the side here. I'm gonna add my flavoring, some vanilla paste or extract. And this buttercream is kind of like a cream cheese frosting in terms of taste, but it's just a little bit more special thanks to that mascarpone. So my butter is nice and fluffy, and at that point I add the icing sugar. And again, do not forget to scrape the sides of the bowl. And after you're done adding all of the icing sugar, then you can proceed to incorporate the mascarpone. Now, mascarpone is a little bit of a sensitive ingredient and it doesn't like to be over whipped. So if you're adding mascarpone to your frosting, just make sure to beat it just enough for it to get incorporated and you'll be fine. Now that we have all of our components, I'm ready to assemble this cake. And before I get to do that, I'm just gonna work on some garnish for the finished product. So I'm rough chopping some more of those pistachios. And that's because I want to show off the beautiful color, that green and pink color that I just have to put on the plate. So here I'm taking out my turntable. You cannot do any cake decorating without it. I mean, you can, but it's just so useful. A definitely must if you're a serious baker. And I have just a disc where I'm placing my cake layers. You can use your plate if you wanted to. I am gonna remove the bump of the cakes just with a serrated knife. You can snack on that later and make sure you can taste the beautiful pistachio flavor. But if you have a flat layer, it's much easier to go up and build a taller cake. So directly on top, I'm placing a little bit of the frosting and just spreading that around. Just give it a generous layer of frosting. And then move on to the next layer. Don't worry about the sides too much, we will cover those later on. And just try to be consistent with how much frosting you have in between layers. And again, the turntable is your best friend here, and also this great tool, the offset spatula. the last cake layer I like to flip over so that the bottom part, which is the flatter part, is at the top. That's a little cake frosting trick. Now, another great tip that I have for you is when you're decorating a cake and you want to coat the sides as well as the top, just make sure that your spatula is always in contact with frosting and not cake. This way you don't grab any of the cake crumbs and then spread those over your beautiful icing. Once you've covered the whole cake, you can still use the spatula or use a cake scraper like I have in the video to make it as smooth as possible on the sides and at the top. So what I wanted to do with these chopped pistachios was just to give it a nice border at the bottom. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the fridge so that I can finish off the top part. Once my cake has been chilling for about an hour or so, you can check that the buttercream has hardened and it's much easier to remove with a knife like so. And I just take my offset spatula again and just smooth that out as much as possible. And more pistachios, of course. This is completely optional because I already mentioned that the flavor of the cake is actually pretty intense, so you don't need as many pistachios. I'm just being super decadent here. And the birthday person absolutely loved this cake. It's one of my favorite cakes to this day, and I'm super happy to share it with you. I hope you like the recipe, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more. I'll see you next time, and thank you for watching.